What is up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Dense Pixels podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brad, joined by my co-host, Micah.
It just occurred to me that I, on this network, am probably the closest thing to a Florida man because I'm related to someone from there, and that's not a good feeling.
You are a Florida man by association.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah. Where did that even come from?
GTA 6 had a big trailer come.
Oh, you know what? I have not even fucking watched that trailer yet. I'm not even gonna lie. This is how much that how tuned in I am to Grand Theft Auto, only like the biggest game in the fucking universe. It is in my watch later list on YouTube. I just have not actually taken the minute and a half needed to see, huge asses in bikinis and whatnot driving around not Miami.
Yeah, you might want to watch that during the commercial break.
Fair enough. but okay. Is it really substantive?
I love how you're so anti, fuck this game. Like open world games, get out of here. Yeah. This one in particular with all this fucking hype. Look, I agree with you with the hype. Right, I need everybody to calm down, especially when they saw that date at the end of it. Like, I need everybody to just take a chill pill. Like, it's okay to be excited, but yeah. I saw one reaction video. I had to turn it off because the IGN host said, "Oh my gosh, they decided to bless us early with this trailer," and I'm just like,
what does bless us early mean? Like, were they expecting the game? Oh, no, that's right. It was supposed to release tomorrow as we're recording this, but it got leaked, did it not? And that's why they just released it early? Okay.
Yeah, so they were just like, all right, here it is.
Okay. But again, it is just a teaser, right? Like, all it establishes that, hey, GTA 6 is coming, and it does take place in Vice City. Like, that's all that this trailer has.
It's coming. It's in Vice City. Heaven forbid, you're going to have to play as a lady. Which is
and a dude, right?
And a guy, but really a lady though. But really a lady, right? Like, it's woke theft auto.
Oh my god! This has nothing to do with GTA, but in our look forward private chat that Jay and Andy and I have, there was Andy posted a screenshot from Twitter, and again I'm going to continue to call it Twitter because fuck Elon Musk. Andy posted a screenshot from Twitter. Because apparently a black woman is going to be playing the voice of Astrid in the new How to Train Your Dragon movie that's coming out. So it's a new voice actor for this role, and the person on Twitter was upset about it because, and they were being serious, it wasn't tongue in cheek, but they were upset about it because I'm sick and tired of losing my culture. Like I can't believe this happening again. And again, for those that haven't seen How I Train Your Dragon, the movie takes place it's like a Norse setting, so everyone's fucking white as shit because it's a fucking Norse setting. But this person was so upset because how dare they have this white woman be played by a black woman, and we're losing our culture. Meanwhile, what they didn't realize, and what the person responding to them didn't realize, is that the original person who played the voice of Astrid in the earlier How to Train Your Dragon movies was America Ferrera, who is also notably not white. Just FYI. So man, those fucking right-wing assholes will find anything that they possibly can to get mad about.
It is. It's funny, man. Like there is culture. White people do have specific cultures, but they don't know what it is. They don't know what it is, right? There's Italian heritage, right?
And that's the thing. Because white people are the colonizers and not the colonizees. We have the benefit of being able to draw back culturally on, the lands that our ancestors hailed from, which is not a luxury afforded to many other minorities, thanks to white people primarily. So,
and they choose to say that their culture is filled with dragons, and that's not your culture, yo. That's made up. It's made up. All right.
So, sorry. We're not a tangent I was expecting to get on. from the jump on this show. Because I'm actually in a great mood, Micah. Because I was inspired that there's a YouTube channel that I follow who is a short essayist. Yeah, it's called Daryl Talks Games. And Daryl Talks Games is he was a psych major, and he talks about games from a from a psychology background essentially, and things that games do and how they make you feel and that kind of stuff. And he, over the last year, made it a point to knock out his gaming backlog, and he just put out a video kind of explaining how he did that. And I too have a really robust gaming backlog that I would like to fucking get to work on now that we are past this giant release year of 2023. And so I have organized all my gaming backlog on a spreadsheet, and I consulted howlongtobeat.com to find out like the average length to beat these games. And then I prioritized them, like, here's the games that I want to attack first, and then here's like the next group and the next group and the next group. So I am proud to say that I have already knocked 3 games off of my backlog just in the week since we've recorded this podcast. Now, do you expect me to go at that pace, for the next several weeks? Absolutely not, because the 3 games that I picked happen to be shorter. But I did enjoy all 3 of them, and I was going to talk about those on this week's show. The first one's actually a new release that I've been looking forward to, and that is Steamworld Build. And this just came out last Friday. I'm a fan of the Steamworld franchise of games. For those that aren't familiar, the Steamworld franchise is are a series of games that have similar settings, and they're all like the settings is like this kind of old west, and all the characters are like robots in the game, and it's kind of like a steampunkish sort of vibe. But what's cool about the series is that they basically take their game world and they stick it into a new game genre for every game that they put out. So like they've put out like a Metroidvania, they've put out a turn-based strategy game, they've put out a card-based RPG, and this new one, Steamworld Build, is a city builder. And the thing that's cool about the Steamworld series is that they take games that sometimes have a higher learning curve, and they managed to simplify them to make them a lot more accessible while still keeping the fun. I think the trade-off is that maybe you sacrifice some of the longevity of the game. Like Steamworld Build is not a game that I'm probably going to play for 100 hours, but it's a good time for the time that you do play it. And this one's another solid entry in the series. It is typical city builder fare, which is you are trying to construct a city. You have different, I guess, classes of citizens that all have different needs and desires to keep them happy. And you want to keep them happy because having happy citizens means you have more tax money rolling in. And when you have tax money rolling in, it gives you money that you can, allocate towards building other things. And a lot of the buildings that you'll build are not only domiciles, but also like production facilities, so that you can, and as you build more, produce more complex resources, you can build more complicated buildings. And there's kind of like a natural rolling curve, as there is in any city builder game. What's cool about SteamWorld is that not only is there the city building part of it, but there's also a flip side to the game, which is a mining aspect, because you actually can go underground and dig underground to mine for materials under the earth as well. And that in itself is like a separate, not like a separate game, but like it's a bit different gameplay than the top side. But the two feed into each other really well, because at first you need to build up the top so that you can get into the mines, but then as you dig deeper into the mines, you start mining resources that you need to build the better buildings on top. So there's a nice cyclical flow to the gameplay, which is pretty fun. I beat my first campaign in about 10 hours, which seems like a good time. There's 5 different maps that you can play on. And as you beat each map once, they give you this like a legendary building that you can use in future campaigns, which is like a nice quality of life upgrade, which makes some of the more tedious aspects of the game a little bit more streamlined for your future plays, which is pretty nifty. I'm having fun. Go ahead.
There's a fracking joke in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's called Don't Frack Too Deep because also as you dig through the mines, like as you go deeper, there are like enemies that you have to contend with as well. So you have to plan for that, and those enemies will like raid your miners essentially at periodic intervals. So you have to set up like defenses and things like that. It's kind of like you have a city builder on one hand, and then almost like a kind of like a tower defense game on the other. Or I saw another review that compared the mining gameplay to like the old Dungeon Keeper series from back in the day, where you're crafting like you're building like a dungeon. Essentially, you're the bad guy in an RPG. Is kind of the concept there. But it's good, and I would say that if you've ever been curious about city builders, but you've been scared off by the complexity of something like a City Skylines, for example, which is a great game, but looks like your brain is going to melt when you first go to tackle it because of all the different things that you can do within the game, then I would recommend giving SteamWorld Build a try, because I think that it is a very good entry point into that kind of genre. And again, if you're like me and you're incredibly OCD and have to lay out your town just so, it's great for that too. So SteamWorld Build, thumbs up. I think it's pretty good.
Nice.
One of the other games that I beat, Micah talked about last year a little bit. I finally got around to it, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, which I had been putting off for a long time. Look, Dotemu has kind of made their name on making side-scrolling beat-em-ups for the modern age, keeping that same gameplay that that old men like Mike and I grew up on back in the arcades, but kind of adding, modern hooks like leveling systems and, extra characters and game modes and stuff like that to keep the gameplay fresh and to keep it replayable. And Shredder's Revenge is a perfectly cromulent one of these, basically. Like it's really fun. It's laden with, Ninja Turtle references. I think the thing that they did really well in this that makes it very satisfying to play is the fact that all of the hitboxes seem very dialed in. Like every like when you don't feel like you're just kind of flailing at an enemy. Like you do feel like that, like the hit zones are dialed in. The turtles actually play a little bit differently because they have different range and attack speeds and powers based on their different weapons that they have. And that part of it it feels good. Like the best compliment you can pay to a game like this is it feels like it's better than games were that came out back then, but it still feels like those games. So it feels like what you remember those games played like, essentially, when you were younger. So
yeah, because those games when we played them they were rigged.
Right, they're rigged to keep you pumping quarters into it, and they were a little janky. But this is it's fun. And this is a great game that I'll revisit periodically because you can rip through a couple stages in this game in like 20 minutes. Like you can go in there and play 3 stages in 20 minutes and have a pretty good time. They have a lot of challenges if you really want to test yourself. I don't know that I'll be going through many stages without getting hit once. That seems difficult.
No, that's not me.
But I like it. Like I said, Shredder's Revenge is good. It sucks that I regret that I waited so long to play it. I wish I could have played it when it was still like in the zeitgeist, but it was a good one to find my way back to.
Well, now you get to play as Usagi Yojimbo, and I think that's Karai. So you came in at a good time. You came in when it's when it's fully formed.
They have a new survival mode that you can check out. Like I unlocked Casey Jones because you get him when you beat the campaign for the first time. But yeah, it was good. They had some good levels, like some good set piece levels. Especially like a lot of the vehicle levels didn't feel like ass like they did in previous beat 'em ups. The soundtrack was solid. No complaints. It was a good time. Good time. So highly recommend.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break and we'll talk about some more games and some news on the other side. All right, so the third game that I beat, and this is probably one I'll spend the least time on, but it's one I've had my eye on for a while. I occasionally will enjoy a good cozy game as long as it's short. I'm not going to play like Animal Crossing or any of like the life simulators or like Stardew or stuff like that because those are too long. But give me a cozy game that I can play for a couple hours, just chill out for a little bit. I'm there. And I finally got to play Unpacking, which is a game that I've had my eye on for a little while. The premise of Unpacking, for those that have not seen it, is literally you are playing as a woman who is moving into various domiciles. You basically play as this woman over 20 years of her life, give or take. And like the first level is like your childhood room, like when you get your very own bedroom for the first time. You know all your stuff's packed up and you unpack it and you put it where it's supposed to go. And then like the next level after that is when you go off to college for the first time and you get into your dorm room. And then after that, like you go from your regular dorm room to like a quad dorm where you share with 4 other people, but you have like similar common areas that you all share, essentially, but you all have your own bedroom, that kind of thing. So and at each stop, all of your possessions are packed up in moving boxes, and the name of the game is quite literal because you're literally just unpacking those boxes and placing things where they're kind of supposed to go. And the game doesn't lock you in hardcore to where things are supposed to be. Like certain items do need to be in certain rooms and in certain areas of that room, but there's not like a right way, quote unquote, to do it. Like you can kind of freewheel it and do it how you want to.
Like you can't have your blender in the bathroom.
No. They're not gonna. Okay. They're not. Or you can't leave like a roll of toilet paper on the kitchen table or anything like that. Like that's not gonna. Okay. That's not gonna fly. But what's cool about the game is that over the course of the multiple levels in the game, there's only like 10. I want to say like 9 or 10 levels. There's a story about this woman that's told, and you kind of get to see major changes in her life. Based around these moves that she's making and the possessions that she keeps versus the ones that she kind of loses along the way. And it's an interesting way to tell a story because you don't see like there are no human characters in the game because like you're literally just, you have a cursor that you're pointing, hey, let me pick this up and put it here and pick this up and put it here. But it does tell the story of this person's life over this like 20 plus year period. Like you kind of find out like, you see like when she first starts, like, oh, she likes to draw, and you get to see how that like evolves over the course of her growing up and becoming an adult, which is neat. It's a very interesting way to tell a story. It's not a long game. I beat it in about 4 hours. You can go back because each level has like a couple challenges you can do if you put certain things in certain places or arrange things a certain way. You get like a sticker and that gives you that. But it's like I said, it's a nice little cozy game. If you're looking for something that's just chill, that it just has good vibes around it, I would definitely recommend giving this a shot when it's on sale. I think it normally sells for like $15. I got it as part of a Humble deal, but it regularly goes on sale for less than 10. It's good. It's a fun little game if you're just looking to chill out and if you like organizing things. And I do like organizing things. I'm someone who
I'm sorry to cut you. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at somebody play this. I can't play this game. I can't because I a place for everything and everything in its place. Like that's me.
But see, that's why you would love this game because
I know.
Yeah, you would get to decide where things go
to do it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I would avoid work to do it. I was like, I got to put those shoes next to each other. I gotta put they gotta go in this particular level of the closet, and they have to be organized by color, and they have to gotta have it like this.
I will say the only thing that did piss me off as you go through the game, because basically like as you unpack the boxes, you essentially pull out one item at a time. And you can put that item on, like, you don't have to put it where it's supposed to go right away. You can just, like, stack them all. Like, you can take, like, a stack of books and put them somewhere and then put all the books away if you want to. Where this person learned how to pack moving boxes, I have no idea. I have no fucking earthly clue. Like, there's some things where, like, one shoe is in one moving box and the matching shoe is in another box. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm watching this person play, and he pulled out a Game Boy or something like that,
Yeah.
right? And then he pulled out a hanger. Wait, what?
Oh, that was the other cute part too, because like as you go through, like they're very much you can tell the people that developed this game are Nintendo fans, because the woman, like, she gets like a GameCube eventually, and that moves with her from house to house, and like all the art in the game is like kind of pixely, like you don't see it, like it's not high definition at all. But if you're looking at the covers of some of the DVDs, right, you can absolutely tell what GameCube games they're referencing as you're putting them away. Like it's very easy to see, which I thought was pretty cool as you're going through.
Oh wow, yeah, there it is. That is very much a GameCube.
Yes, it is 100% like she literally starts with a GBA, and she gets a GameCube and still has the GBA, and then eventually upgrades to a DS, and then she eventually upgrades to a Wii. Like it's very intentional, very on the nose, with that stuff. So yeah, Unpacking is cool. I would certainly recommend checking it out as well. So again, 3 good games to start out with. I can't wait until I get to the point in the backlog where I play something for 3 hours and I'm like, this fucking sucks. I'm getting rid of it. So, but I need to make some progress, because like I said, I was stymied with all these fucking RPGs I'm trying to play. So I need to get the ball rolling.
I hear you. I hear you. You gotta finish. You gotta feel like you accomplished something.
That's right. You do. You do. So let us move into the news. There was a story that came out this week, and some people are, I think, upset not at the specific news itself that came out around this, but more so around the implications that this news has. So it was announced by Sony that come December 31st, if you purchased certain television shows on your PlayStation, not only will you not be able to download those shows again, but they're actually going to be removed from your video library on your console. So even if you have the shows like installed on your PS5, those shows are going to be deinstalled and they will disappear.
Oh.
And these are all shows that are owned by Discovery, Discovery Warner Brothers, and
garbage,
of course, and they're going away because of a licensing agreement, right? So
okay,
so this isn't new. We've seen this before. We've seen certain games that have disappeared from sale, because of licensing agreements and things like that. Now we've never seen those games forcibly removed off of your console. Like, I remember there was a Transformers game that came out about 7 or 8 years ago that can't be sold anymore because of a licensing issue. But if you owned the game and had it downloaded, like, you could still play it, and obviously disc versions of the game would still work. But where people are,
they took Marvel vs. Capcom 3 off of digital storefronts.
Yep.
For the same reason.
But again, the difference here is that they're physically, in this case, they're physically removing this media. Now, I know a lot of people are probably out there saying, who gives a shit? Like, who the fuck watches TV shows on their PlayStation and is buying fucking episodes of Cake Boss and shit like that on your PS5? And I understand where you're coming from with that. Number one, I'll tell you that it's probably more people than you think do that. Like, I know most folks in our community don't do that, but for people where maybe streaming is not as ubiquitous or doesn't work as well, like, yeah, maybe this is how they interact with that stuff. I don't know. I don't know what the numbers look like.
They wouldn't offer it if people didn't do it.
Correct. 100%. And so that's led to some interesting discussions. And one of the discussions was an article that Luke Plunkett of Aftermath wrote about. And the headline is titled, "There is no piracy without ownership." And basically he goes to talk about around this Sony thing, but in a broader sense. We've known for a long time that when you get a digital copy of a game, that you're not actually buying a product. You're not actually buying like a piece of media that you own. You're buying a license to use that piece of media that the distributor owns, if that makes sense. Okay, you're buying a key, basically. And we've seen many a times where games that are online only, eventually the servers get shut off, can't play those games anymore, including any content that you may have purchased with microtransactions through those games. We've seen games that, again, go get delisted for sale. And he quotes like embedded in the story is a Blue Sky post from a guy named Tyler James Hill, who's quote, I don't know what it's called on Blue Sky, but basically the equivalent of quote tweeting the Sony announcement. And he says, if buying isn't owning, piracy isn't stealing. Which is to say, if you purchase something but you don't own it, then pirating that same thing technically can't be stealing. Because if you purchase something and don't own it, then what are you actually buying? And what is the company actually losing if they're not selling you a good, essentially? Something that's a commodity of sorts. And basically Luke Plunkett says, look, like that's a very simplified way to say this, but he's onto something there. Like, if I'm quoting from him directly now, if the concept of ownership of modern media is changing, then so too should our treatment of its counterpart, which is piracy. And we've talked about piracy on the show before, and I generally take an anti-piracy stance. Like I think if something is out there, art, you should pay artists for their art. You should pay game makers for the games they make, because games cost a lot of money, a lot of people make them, and I think it's important to support those things. But I also understand, like, if games aren't sold anymore, like especially like older games like that you want to emulate, I don't have a problem with that. But like, I'm not going to go downloading a copy of Steamworld Build, for example. Like, I'm not going to go find a pirated copy of that when it releases, because like I want to give that developer money, because I'm like, hey, like, I think your game's cool, I'm going to check it out, and you deserve my money for that. But I got to tell you, like kind of looking at it through this lens, I'm just like, hey, like, I think maybe they might be onto something here. Like truly, if a game company or if a distributor can yeet their product away from you at a moment's notice, what are you supposed to do as a consumer?
But isn't it I understand what you're saying, right? I understand what this article is saying. I understand what this person is saying. I agree this is a very, very simplified way of putting things. But isn't it common knowledge? Maybe it's not common knowledge, but I thought it was common knowledge that if you buy something, digital, that you are buying the privilege to use it. It is not yours. It is not yours, right? Like, if we extrapolate this, okay, I bought a VHS of A New Hope, 35 years ago. I don't own A New Hope. I own the cassette. I own the VHS. And if I mean, isn't it the same thing? Like, if technology is advancing to the point where you can't use that VHS anymore, you're not looking at it. You're not looking at A New Hope on that VHS anymore. You just have congratulations, you own the vessel with which you were to watch that content. And I know that this is like a weak argument, because I haven't really thought this through, but I don't think it's as black and white. I get piracy. I do. I understand it. I know why people do it. And I'm not here to pass judgment on you. I try not to pirate things that are readily available, right? Like, I will look for something. I joke with the guys on Black Cinema. I hate renting movies, but I'll rent them, right? Like, if you can pay the artist directly, that's what you should be doing.
It's the ideal,
right?
Yeah,
that's the idea. When you pay for something, you're not paying the artist directly. The artist gets their payment from whoever is above them, and then you pay that person for the privilege of looking at or consuming that art. So I get it. I also feel like this is just people trying to, uh, you know, rationalize the fact that they don't want to pay for shit.
Well, so
And I like I get it, right? Like this thing has the old ad that's like, you wouldn't steal a car.
yeah, that fucking thing.
You're right. Like, shut up, right? Like, this is
Well,
not. This
so
is
I'm going to provide a counterpoint to your example, and then I'm going to ask you an ethical question. Okay, so the counterpoint to your Star Wars example is yes, like you had a VHS of Star Wars, and eventually VHSs went out of vogue, and media changed, and you might still have this cassette tape, but you can't necessarily view it if you don't have a VCR. But let's say that I have a VCR, and I'm like, hey, Micah, like I know you don't want to, I know you can't do anything with your copy of Star Wars: A New Hope on VHS anymore. But will you sell that to me, or give that to me, or trade that with me? Because I have a working VCR and I'd like to watch A New Hope on VHS. And you can do that because you own a physical copy of something, a physical good. Whereas if you have a game, like a digitally downloaded game, you can't do the same thing. Like you can't be like, hey, like I'm gonna sell this digital game to you. It doesn't work that way because again, you're just buying a license and a key. So I think there's a bit of a fundamental difference.
sure, but that person is still essentially like, you're still not paying the artist.
No,
You're
no, you're
paying
not in
me.
that case. You're right. You're right because
So, guess
because you
what? I'm
own.
making money. I'm making money off of that other person's art.
So good
Like,
counterpoint. Now let me ask you the ethical question. So let's say that I really fucking love Duff Goldman, and I'm just like, fuck, I gotta buy Cake Boss season 1 on my PlayStation so I can watch it on my PS5. And then this shit happens where they take Cake Boss away. And I said, what the fuck? Like I paid Sony for this. Warner Brothers or Discovery or whoever the fuck owns it got 70% of that. So like I paid them to be able to watch Cake Boss on my PlayStation. And now because they can't come to an agreement with Sony on product licensing, they're taking that away from me. Something that I paid for, something that I bought, that they got my money, but now I can't watch this thing that I bought. Is it wrong of me to then go and torrent and download season 1 of Cake Boss? Because technically I bought it already. And they took it away. So I'm not stealing from them because they stole from me. So I'm not stealing because I already paid them for this. So yeah, I am going to go ahead and torrent this.
okay, I see what you're saying, right? Again, I think it comes down to the point where I hate to do this. I hate to do this. But like when you buy these things, I believe the fine. I haven't read the fine print because nobody does.
I think
right?
I
And if
think
it's
you are correct that the terms of service probably very clearly and legally state that like, hey, you are not.
right.
So
You are not owning this, right? Like if and maybe they need to do a better job of telling you up front.
well,
right?
that's what I'm a big at. So like I am a firm believer, and this doesn't just go for video games or content that you buy through a PlayStation. Like I'm talking about across the digital board. I think every company in existence should have and I'm going to coin this term so nobody steal it from me. The term commandments. I don't want to see a fucking document full of legalese. Give me a 15-point fucking thing that says, thou shalt not own this piece of digital media that you are buying. Thou shalt not make any unauthorized copies. Like, take your fucking terms of service that nobody reads because we're not lawyers and we don't have 30 minutes to read through a legal document that is pretty much like 90% the same as all the other versions of that legal document that exists. And just bullet it out and put it in plain English. Summarize like what each number means and make that the terms of service. Like you have, like, obviously you'll still have the legalese one because you need to, but like, hey, consumer, we know you're not going to read this, but you still have to agree to it. So we're going to spell it out for you in plain English, what it is you're agreeing to. And then I feel like people can make an educated decision as to whether or not they are okay with the terms of that arrangement or whether they're not. And I think that would level the playing field a little bit. But the problem is that companies use the terms of service, use end user license agreements as shields because they know A, you're not going to read it, and B, even if you do, it's a 50-50 chance that you understand what the document is even saying.
And on a third hand, they usually throw those things at you after you buy it.
Also correct. Also correct.
Like that's bullshit, yo.
Right.
Like that's fucking bullshit. Like when you right when you say you want to purchase something, the agreement should come up. Your 15 bullet points should be there, and you should have to each step. It should be one at a time, right? Do you agree to this? Yes. Do you understand this? Yes. Do you understand this? Yes. And then finally, are you sure you want to buy this? Yes. I know this sounds ridiculous. It does. But it's the only fair way to do stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you can't like these companies are shady, man.
Yes.
They're incredibly shady. And look, I'm no corporate stooge, even though it sounds like it, right? But I'm no corporate stooge. Corporations are a means to an end.
Yes.
Right? Like, and that's how they should be treated. You could dead name Twitter all you want because it's just a corporation. It's a means to an end. But at the same time, I want them. I feel like they should play fair. Look, I completely understand where people are coming from. I am not going to tell you that I'm not going to judge you for pirating. I'm not going to tell you should, right? Like I'm going
to tell you maybe pirate more things than you might be pirating right now. That's what I'm going to tell you.
Look, I just don't want nobody to come to me and say, well, that guy on Dense Pixels said that I could do this. He's a lawyer. No, I'm not.
Well, but again, like if your ISP comes to you and is like, hey, like we noticed you downloaded this thing off of this torrent site, just again quote it back to them. Hey, if buying isn't owning, then piracy isn't stealing, and see what they say. And by the way, this like this whole conversation, like this whole back and forth that Mike and I are having, and talking about like terms of service and user license agreements, stuff like that. This is why government regulation in these spaces is super important. Because if you have the government if they were to step into the situation and be like, what the fuck, like why the fuck do you, like you know, you see it also like robocalls and telemarketers and stuff like that, like when things are annoying citizens and companies are allowed to do whatever the fuck they want. That's why you need governments to step in and fix that stuff, and hopefully they're not on the, you know, being lobbied by said companies to not do anything, which is usually what happens and a lot of the reasons why this stuff doesn't happen. But it's also why when you hear people talk about like a deregulatory state, tell them they're stupid and punch them in the face.
Yeah, because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Like that's literally the point of government.
Yes.
Like it's quite literally the point of having a government. Otherwise, like what are they there for?
Yes.
And so yeah, man, look, this is a very interesting conversation. This is and again, I get it. Trust me. Okay. My friend Jack Torrance is I got him on speed dial. Okay. I 100% get it. At the same time, like, don't use this as an excuse to not pay for shit if you can afford to pay for it.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I'm not telling you to go out and, you know, go fucking pirate Super Mario Wonder because fuck Nintendo. Like, no, like pay for Super Mario Wonder. But again, like if you bought fucking, I don't know why I'm fixated on a Cake Boss. If you bought fucking multiple seasons of Cake Boss on the PlayStation, then get your ass to BitTorrent and fucking download your Cake Boss. Like I fully endorse you doing that, because again, like you paid for it, you should use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Or
We're gonna take another quick break, and then we'll be back with some more news and the post office. Quick stories here. Micah, did you know that Xbox spends, according to Phil Spencer, over $1 billion a year to bring third-party games to Game Pass?
$1 billion?
Billion with a B.
Jesus Christ. Is this like some Vince McMahon like Andre the Giant is 8 feet tall and 600 pounds type of like embellishment?
I don't know, because some of those documents that leaked out from the FTC case talked about some of the deals that Microsoft had made for certain Game Pass games, and also some of the costs that they speculated things would cost to bring them onto Game Pass. Like, I think they said, oh, for the new Star Wars Jedi Survivor game, like, we're probably gonna need to give Microsoft or EA like $100 billion or $100 million in order to get this game on Game Pass, or something crazy like that. So,
I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? Especially with licensed game, like heavily, like super popular properties and stuff like that. Like, everybody's got to get their cut, man.
Yeah, and again, like this is a classic. This is like, when you hear the phrase "you got to spend money to make money," like, this is a classic example of that. Microsoft knows they need to offer an incentive, because Game Pass downloads are going to result in loss of sales. So they just are. I mean, it's just the way it is. Like I would imagine that a healthy percentage of the people that download a game and play it on Game Pass are people that may have bought the game that are like, well, no, I don't have to now, because it's available on the service. So you have to compensate developer publishers for those potential lost revenue dollars. It's just a wild amount of money to hear. And again, this is just for third party. This isn't even counting their own first party games, all of which appear on Game Pass right away. So crazy.
All right, man.
Crazy.
I mean, look, it's a wild business. Look, Game Pass, I don't have it anymore, but the idea of it is sound for the consumer. Again, it's like Netflix. I don't know how they make their money.
Well, but it's not Netflix, though, because again, as we said, I don't know if Microsoft gives a shit like how much you're actually buying their products. They just want to count you as a user. The last bit, so Micah, I foolishly, as it turns out, anticipated that as we neared Christmas, as we entered the holiday season, that we might finally get a couple of weeks where we don't have news about video game industry layoffs. And that was my fault for assuming such a wild thing. But the layoffs that we're going to talk about today are the type of layoffs that really piss me off. And we've talked about them on the show before, and I'll explain why. So EA has laid off staff, it's unclear how many, at UK developer Codemasters, who are best known as the racing developers of F1, the F1 EA Sports series, and now the WRC World Rally Championship games, which they just released WRC 23 this past week, and they've still been laid off. They've laid off a bunch of folks. Again, I don't know how many, and contributing to sales that didn't quite meet expectations, right? And the reason that this pisses me off, the reason that I'm frustrated about these layoffs specifically, is for the same reason that I've been frustrated about a lot of layoffs, especially around like the Embracer Group and things like that. Codemasters was recently purchased by EA. Micah, you'll never guess when Codemasters was bought by Electronic Arts, if you don't recall. I know we talked about it on the show when it happened, but it was a little bit ago. You might not remember the exact date. It was back in 2021 when EA paid $1.2 billion for the notable racing game developer. Why does that matter? 2021? Because that's when interest rates were in the fucking toilet, because we were still rebounding from a global pandemic that was still ongoing, and companies were borrowing money and spending money like it was going out of style, not ever thinking about, there's going to come a point where these interest rates are going to go back up, and we're going to need, and that check's going to come due, and then we're going to find ourselves in a fucking spot of bother. And the funny thing is, I don't think Codemaster even needed to be acquired. Like, it's not like EA was swooping in to save them from insolvency. Like, Codemasters was doing fine. You know, they had to shop around for publishers for their games and stuff like that. But as a studio, they were reputable. They made good products. They were a trusted name in the industry. But EA made them an offer that they would have been stupid to refuse. Ironically, they were stupid to refuse it because, you know, that offer meant long-term stability for the fucking studio. They didn't have to worry about, you know, scraping by on stuff. But they didn't have to get acquired by EA. EA didn't have to go out and buy Codemasters. They wanted to do it because they're like, oh, those F1 games are pretty good, and they're making rally games that are pretty good. And man, like, if we can have Codemasters, like, we'll have the premier racing series game developer in our stable of sports games. And that's awesome. So let's go throw them a Billy too, and fucking bring them into the fold. And now they're laying people off because they were irresponsible to spend money when they probably shouldn't have. And that's why I'm pissed off about this.
Yeah, this sucks, man. This is just not even self-inflicted, right? Like, this is just fucked up. This is just EA, the worst company in America, doing what the worst company in America does. Yeah, this stinks, man.
Yep. So, look, I sincerely hope that game publishers, I should say, can fucking chill out for a month and maybe not lay people off literally weeks before the holidays. Perhaps they could do that. That would be cool. But probably not, because
you gotta keep up appearances, right? You don't think we're going soft on you?
Yeah, stupid. So, you know what is a stupid, Micah? Sending us questions into the Dense Pixels post office, which you can do in our Discord, which you can join by going to densepixels.com/fans. We'll start with Cam, and Cam says, take me down to GTA Vice City, where the gators are green and the girls are thicky. Am I right?
Yeah, you are right. the Grand Theft Auto trailer dropped, and the game is coming out in 2025.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. They were, and everybody's like, "Oh, 2025, that's only a year away." No, it's not coming out January 1st, 2025, right? Like, it's gonna be long. It's gonna be longer than that. And I'm thinking probably around whenever their fiscal year ends.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that information off the top of my head. But I'm gonna say sometime like, I don't know, summertime.
You think
like
so?
that.
I think it'll be fall. I think it'll be like a late September, early October release.
I think it'll be like, this feels like August. This feels like an August game, because it's still, it's summertime, right? It's in Florida, right? Like you get those vibes, right? You'll get kids while they're out of school, right? And I feel like this is coming out in like late summer. But we'll see. It takes place in Vice City, which is a city in I forget what it's like, Leonida or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's their version of that's the name they're giving to Florida. It's going to take place in not just in Vice City proper, but like it looks like a lot of Miami and Central Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know Miami's in the southern tip. It's like Miami's at the southern tip of Florida. They got the archipelago, which is the Keys, and then there's some of this stuff that looks like Central Florida. A lot of swampland.
Well, I was going to ask you, did the original Vice City have like a equivalent of like the Everglades in it?
I think so. It's been a very long time since I played Vice City. But look, this looks like the most accurate depiction of Florida I've ever seen ever. Miami is a very cool town, but it's weird. It's like that girlfriend that Jerry Seinfeld had in that episode of Seinfeld where in some light she looks beautiful and then in other light she's like, oof. Like that's Miami, right? Like in the
Mhm.
daytime, Miami looks like any other, bumfuck like Florida town. But at night, like it's just amazing. Like it gets all glammed up and it's awesome at
I
night.
that reminds me that I need to cue that episode up soon because that of course is also the Festivus episode, which is a holiday tradition this time of year. And look, very topical, very topical theme this year because one of the other subplots of the episode is that Kramer finally his multi-year strike from his bakery job ends, and he goes back to work, but then strikes again later on. So, they're very apropos with what's going on in the labor force right now. Daniel asks, how many Grand Theft Auto games have you played? I'll start because mine will be brief. I've only played Vice City and a smidge, like maybe 3 hours of GTA 4. And those two games are the totality of my Grand Theft Auto experience.
Wow. Well, you don't really care for this style of game, right?
I do not, in fact.
Yeah, yeah. So I've played all of the PS2 ones, 4, 5, Vice City, Liberty City Stories, Vice City Stories, um, that Chinatown
Mhm.
Wars on the DS. I played that. Um, I think that's it.
So, so what you're
Uh,
saying is that apart from the original two, which might as well not even be Grand Theft Auto games, you've literally played every single one.
I think that is all of them. I think there might be another one. I love open world games. I love the idea of people like crafting a world and just saying, "Here you go,"
Mhm.
like come and play in it. But but I also like realism. Like I like the idea of stepping into a place that exists, but I'm not in it and I want to go, right?
Mhm.
Like this shit looks like fucking Florida, yo. Like this shit like the way people are acting is very much like Florida from what I have experienced. Even down to like the body types as Cam was alluding to, the body types of a lot of these different people. Um Look, I want this game to be good, but I don't think this game is going to be revolutionary in terms of gameplay. Like everything you see in this trailer is just one big ass cutscene, right?
Mhm.
So of course it's going to look the best, like it's going to look the best possible way it can look. But I'm way more interested in what they plan on doing with gameplay. How is mission structure going to be? Because mission structure with these things is that's the thing, right? Like these Rockstar games have incredibly good character work because their mission structure is generally subpar.
Mhm.
The thing that made five great was the heists and the planning and the execution of the heist and then the getaway. Like that's the thing that really was the driving force of Grand Theft Auto 5. All this other bullshit miscellaneous like it's the same shit, right? Drive to this location, do this, drive back. And that's what I'm worried about. Like that's what I want to see, right? Like I have no doubt that they're going to create a beautiful looking world that's going to be dense and that's what I want, right? I don't need big sprawling maps. I need dense maps
Mhm.
with a lot of stuff and a lot of people and stuff like that. I'm just really worried about the mission structure. Um,
Well, and see, for me, that is the thing because these games are all about the world and the characters and getting sucked into that because and again, I haven't played five, so if it's vastly improved in this department, I wouldn't know. But one of the reasons that I could never stick with the other games, and I gave Vice City was the one I played the most of. I probably put in like a good dozen to 15 hours of Vice City, and I fell off of it. because the gameplay sucks in Grand Theft Auto games. And I've heard that 5 is far improved in that area. But I'll tell you, I also played. I gave the old college try to the original Red Dead Redemption back in the day, and fell off of it for the exact same reason, because it didn't feel good to play. And if the game doesn't feel good to play, then all the other stuff had better drag you along. And if it doesn't, then you're not going to be in there for a while.
Yeah, like if you're not into these characters and these stories, like a testament to Red Dead Redemption's character work is it got me to finish both of those games. I'm not a Western guy, right? But the character work and the story were interesting enough that I kind of wanted to, that you want to finish it. And then I just get joy, I like these type of games, so I get joy out of just kind of fucking around with people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you don't like if you don't like the way these games play, I mean, they're not, nothing's gonna make you change your mind. And
Yeah.
I think that's what's gonna happen with this, right? Like this company has built up this, because they're like the Tarantino of video game developers, right? Like they only do a certain amount of games and they come out when they come out. And because they don't like beat you over the head with iteration after iteration after iteration, you miss them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I guarantee you, if Assassin's Creed took a decade off, people would be pining for it once they said a new one was coming out. So we'll see. I'm excited for it, but I'm not like, gagging for it. You know what I mean?
Holy shit. Oh, always good to have a solid Mission Impossible 2 reference on the show. Mad Coco G asks, with GTA 6 being announced, are we going to see long dormant clones make a return to piggyback, or in other words, to ride their coattails? I think that most game developers have now figured out that Grand Theft Auto has a certain je ne sais quoi to it, and you can't just make an open world game that also takes place in a city that's also about doing hella crimes and expect to just, cash in. Like those days I feel like are long gone.
Yeah. See Saints Row, the most recent Saints Row.
Right. So I don't think you're going to see a rush to, and plus, like, the concept isn't new, right? Like one of the reasons we got so many GTA knockoffs back in the day is because the concept back then was new. And usually you see knockoff, like what I'm waiting for over the next like 2 to 3 years is all the Elden Ring / Zelda open world knockoffs that are sure to be coming. We've already seen a couple here and there, but there will be many more, believe you me. Because again, people don't realize what it takes to make this game special. They just assume that, like, oh, we just follow this blueprint, we're gonna have success, and it doesn't ever work out that way. Right. No, not that. Gerard says, hey, Brad, I wanted to know if you had a chance to see The Killer with Michael Fassbender in it. I know he was one of your favorites and wondered how you felt about his performance. Well, I'll tell you what, Gerard, I have not seen David Fincher's The Killer yet. I've not seen that movie yet. But I'm sure because it's a David Fincher film, it's probably sure to be halfway decent. Regardless of what fly-by-night actor or actors they may have cast to play the lead role in said film. So,
do you know who Joel Kinnaman is?
Yes, I do.
That is who you think Michael Fassbender is.
In fairness to me, Michael Fassbender's films perform like films that Joel Kinnaman is in. So like you can easily see where I could confuse the two. Look, I've long said, and if you've listened to the show long enough, you know this. I don't think Michael Fassbender is a bad actor. I think he has a terrible agent and makes really poor choices about which films he's going to star in. That's what I think about Michael Fassbender.
Yes, I agree. And I don't think that Joel Kinnaman is a horrible actor. but like Michael Fassbender, he too picks roles that. What are you doing?
Look, I really
Also,
like Joel
he's a
Kinnaman in
badass.
season 4 of House of Cards. I thought he was like, I thought he was perfectly cast. And have I seen the 2014 RoboCop film? I have not, because I'm not trying to ruin RoboCop for myself. Because RoboCop 1 is a cinema classic, and if you haven't seen RoboCop 1, you should go see RoboCop 1 because it's amazing.
Did we review RoboCop?
We did.
We had to
we did. We 100% did. I distinctly remember laughing about him shooting a attempted rapist in the dick.
In the dick.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Of all the things that stupid fucking remake tried to do and failed, they didn't do that. Come on, man.
But again, and you know what? This folds nicely into what we just talked about with copycats. They didn't realize what made the original RoboCop great. The thing that made the original RoboCop great is because it was a fantastic satire on commercialism, on like the fucking the rat race of the 1980s, and it was a fucking setup of that framed around this ridiculous action movie. But the fucking points that the movie made were just, nuanced, fantastic. Paul Verhoeven is a fucking fantastic director, and they just remade the film, and they're like, you know what everyone liked about that RoboCop film? The fact that there's a fucking robot and a cop and he shot people. Like that, no, like that was part of it, but that's not what made the film classic. Jesus Christ. Also, Kurtwood Smith. Did anyone say bitches leave in the 2014 RoboCop film?
Yeah, they certainly didn't.
All right, well, I'm knocking off a full star because of that. Come on, what are you doing? But yes, Michael Fassbender, a perfectly cromulent actor. Just makes bad choices. He makes very bad choices. That's it. That's what that at the end of the day, that's the problem. And I'm glad that he finally said, "Hey, that David Fincher, he makes some good movies. Maybe I should do a movie that he's directing so that it won't be a piece of shit." And so if The Killer is good, and Jay said it was, so I believe Jay. I trust Jay's taste on these things. I will eventually watch it, and I will give all credit to David Fincher where it belongs. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood says, with hype machines in full force through trailers and Games Awards show reveals, what games can you think of that were underhyped but over-delivered? Oh, there's so many. There's so many. But I'll tell you what. I'll give you a really poignant. Actually, we just talked about it. Even and you kids, you youngins out there will have to transport yourself back in time for this one. People don't remember that when the original Red Dead Redemption came out, people weren't really expecting it to be a big thing. Like even though it was a Rockstar game, even though it was from the makers of GTA, people were like, Old West, I don't really know. I don't know this is going to do as well. It didn't have as many, definitely didn't have as many pre-orders as a GTA would. And I distinctly remember, because we both worked at GameStop at the time, I distinctly remember we sold through stock of that game like lickety-split because they underordered because they didn't think it was going to be a big deal. And that game ended up selling like fucking 20 million copies. So the original Red Dead Redemption is a good example of a game that was underhyped, but was way over-delivered when it came out.
Yeah, like half of the PS2 library is a bunch of games that's like under promise, over delivered, right?
Yeah.
Like Psychonauts, right? Like nobody nobody was talking about it, and then they played it, and it was like, oh my god, this is amazing. What was that? Beyond Good and Evil, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was another game that people didn't think was gonna, and then bam, it was amazing. People were clamoring for a sequel that'll never happen. Like there's way too many to name.
Yep.
But there are a few that you'll have to pirate if you want to play.
A lot of indies get this too, again, because we don't remember it because all we remember is like the game appears and it's huge. Nobody fucking knew jack shit about Stardew Valley when Stardew Valley came out, and it came up in this thing. Same with Minecraft, same with a lot of those type of games that just kind of fly under the radar, and then all of a sudden people get them in their hands and they're like, oh my god, like this is incredible. Let's fucking do this. So there's a lot more of those than you think that are out there. Finally, T-Wash asks, is there any video game character animations you love? I like when the evil Cal Kestis hair rub back taunt in the first game. What the fuck was the evil Cal Kestis hair rub taunt?
I have no idea.
That's strange. The best character animations are if a game took the time to program idle animations in 16-bit games, those were usually pretty good. Those were usually pretty good.
Like Sonic tapping his foot,
checking his watch, and Diddy Kong like throwing his hat up in the air and like doing one of these and catching it and shit like that. Yeah, there's a couple of those out there that are pretty funny if you took the time to wait for them to play.
That's funny. I like that. I'm going to steal that. I was going to go back to my old default of Spider-Man, specifically Spider-Man 2, just because it's on the brain. It's always on my mind. There's swinging animations have vastly improved in that game. Like it's he's doing poses that you see comic book artists draw for Spider-Man, and it looks beautiful, swing through the air. Before, Peter would just kind of do the same, like, not looping animations, but he had like 2 or 3 animations he would do, and then you could manually do tricks and stuff. But he was limited. And then Miles, they gave different animations with the exaggerated swagger of a black teen or whatever the fuck he said, and they look good. And now in this game, they've improved on both of them. So
yeah. all I've seen is that which again I didn't. It's funny that they even think to put stuff like this in the game. Like if you take like a giant leap with Peter, like he'll like flip over backwards as he's falling and like solve a Rubik's cube in midair while he's falling through the air. And so like that's like okay, that's cool. I guess it's so weird.
That's cool, man.
It's weird they program that kind of stuff. So cool. So thank you all for your questions. Again, you can join our Discord by going to densepixels.com/fans and submit questions in the post office every week, along with chatting with other listeners of the show about these video game things that we all love. Don't forget to download and subscribe to the show, as well as all the other TNP Studio shows wherever you download podcasts. If you're a video connoisseur, you can go to youtube.com/densepixels and check that out, because we post the podcast in video format every week. You can also subscribe to our premium content network feed, which is at densepixels.com/premium. It's just $5 a month or $50 for a full year. And if you want to, you can also support the show financially by going to densepixels.com/Amazon whenever you buy anything from Amazon. So that is it for us this week.
You look like there's a new episode. There's a new episode of Airing of Grievances up. Surprise!
Oh. Merry fucking Christmas.
Happy Festivus. I'm not even going to tell you that we're trying to get back on. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it because Jay's going to make me a liar.
Well, I laughed at Jay. So we mentioned as we were wrapping up Look Forward on the show last night, Jay mentioned that we would be off next week because he was going to be in Baltimore. And I said it's quite ironic and funny that you will be in Baltimore, the city in which I also reside. And because you'll be in Baltimore, we are not able to record a podcast. So that is just how it goes sometimes. But we'll be back next week. So until then, thank you guys very much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.
See you.
You're watching the Dense Pixels YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button while you're here, and make sure you check out our weekly podcast where we discuss the latest gaming news and our impressions on what games we've been playing.